Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Ramp podcast. I'm your guest host, Diana Perkins, and I'm here with special guest, Eric Moyal of Project Insulin. Welcome, Eric.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, you're the executive director of Project Insulin. Why don't we start by having you just tell us a little bit about what Project Insulin is?
Yeah, so we're a nonprofit that's going to make our own generic insulin, and we're going to sell it directly to patients at cost.
That's awesome. So, as a nonprofit, um, what kind of funding do you need to kind of get a big program like that off the ground? That seems like a pretty expensive goal.
Yeah, so it's different than your for-profit model where you can go to venture capital and, offer a stake and equity share of the business to investors. So we're more focused on donors, whether that be, the hundreds of people that follow us on social media and support us, or large individual donors who can, afford big gifts, as well as grants for, focused on accessibility, focused on diabetes, just a variety of different grants. And then we're starting to look into debt financing as well. I don't know too much about it, but it is an option. So yeah.
Cool. And how is that fundraising going for you guys?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting ride for us. So Project Insulin's been around for about 2 years, not even, a little bit less than that. And so far we've raised about, I think, 15-ish thousand dollars through crowdfunding, friends and family. We won $2,500 in a pitch contest and just a slew of different things. And then most recently, we got a $50,000 grant from a foundation, which I guess this is me announcing that because we didn't announce it yet. But anyway, we received a $50,000 grant specifically to work with a consultant to better understand the insulin landscape, not today, but what it'll look like in 5 to 7 years once our drug is ready. Because, we know there's a problem today, but predicting what the problem looks like with insulin affordability and accessibility for when our insulin is ready is key.
That makes sense. So I know you haven't done the work with the consultant yet to understand what the future of insulin is going to be like, but why don't you tell us a little bit about the history of insulin, or why it is that insulin prices have had such a huge increase in the last few years, that this kind of Project Insulin is necessary?
Yeah, the history for insulin is really interesting. And when I learned it was kind of when I got, upset and motivated to take this challenge on. So a group of scientists at the University of Toronto in 1920 something found insulin. They discovered insulin. And then they created a patent for it. And one of the researchers, Frederick Banting, famously quoted that insulin doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the world, meaning that this is, a life-sustaining medication, right? It's something that people need to take every day for the rest of their lives if you have type 1 and various circumstances for type 2. And so they sold the patent for $1, which is about $20 today. Insulin is no longer in use, but over time it got better and better. And in the late 90s, a new type of insulin came out called analog insulins. I can't really tell you exactly what makes them better, but part of one of the things that the analogs did was they were able to release insulin in the body at different rates. So there's a fast acting, a middle acting, and a long acting insulin. So the long acting insulin you inject in your body, and over the course of 24 hours, the insulin kind of dissolves in the bloodstream and is used, so to speak. don't know the science terms for it, but that's the gist. And once those analog insulins came out, obviously the drug manufacturers had patents on them, and the price just started skyrocketing in the mid 2000s, so about 10 years in. I can't really give you an answer as to like what happened, like what was the reason for that. But one of the reasons we're a nonprofit is because for-profit organizations, by default, their like goal is to maximize profit, right? Like that is the point of for-profit organizations. And so if you're able to raise the prices, it is, you know, you have a fiduciary duty to your investors to do that. And so part of our reasoning for a nonprofit is to protect patients, right? As a nonprofit, our goal is to ensure equal access to affordable insulin. And we're protecting patients from those opportunities. So earlier we talked about funding. There is no equity stakes to give out because our goal isn't to make massive profits. Our goal is to make an insulin as affordable as possible for patients. And it's kind of like a built-in buffer to ensure accountability. Yeah.
I like that. One thing I did want to ask about the use of the nonprofit model was sometimes I know in the nonprofit space, including even for RAMP, funding can be inconsistent in the best of times, shall we say. And so after you have kind of raised the initial capital that you need to get this off the ground and you're going, I know you said at cost to consumers, are you at all worried that you may have times where because of funding gaps or anything like that, you're not able to get product to customers as consistently as needed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I will first say it would be foolish of me to predict like what we'll do in 7 years, but the
Fair.
basic answer is assuming we've gotten to the point where we have an FDA approved drug and we're distributing to patients through our own mail order pharmacy. The goal is that the price of the insulin is our operating plus operating plus manufacturing expenses divided by the amount of vials we sell. So if our operating and manufacturing expenses for the year 2030 is $100 and we sell 100 vials, then it'll cost $1 per vial. So once we have an insulin ready, the model is sustainable. Right? We can continue funding it because patients are paying for their insulin. And any grant and donation money we get would go into an endowment that will then be used to subsidize the cost even further. So another beautiful part of the nonprofit model is we can create these endowments. And for people who don't know, an endowment is kind of like a fund of money that is put aside and it is invested, and then you use a part of the return on that investment to subsidize whatever it is that your organization does. So if it's a scholarship for school, like universities, then a percentage of the endowment goes towards scholarship, etc. So our endowment would go towards bringing down the cost even further and ensuring it's sustainable in the long run.
That sounds great. That makes sense to me. I'm really interested in kind of how did you get involved? Both, I know you spoke a little bit about how you got started with Project Insulin, but how did you get involved in this project and kind of in this field in general?
Yeah, so none of it was on purpose, I guess. I'll give you the long story because I think that's the prevalent one here. But in 2014, I think my younger sister got hit by a car while she was biking. And as a result, she ended up with two chronic illnesses. One is thoracic outlet syndrome, or TOS, and the other is complex regional pain syndrome, or CRPS. And so after her she got hit. We took 2 years to get diagnoses. That's a whole nother story about awareness and knowledge of these rare illnesses. But she eventually did get diagnosed, and I started raising money and awareness so that people who are going through that process of trying to figure out what their illness is can get there faster, because the longer it takes, the harder it is to manage the illness. So I started raising money, and at the same time, on a career trajectory, so this is personal life, in a career trajectory, I ended up working at the university that I went to school at, Brandeis University, as a fundraiser. And so I had this passion for chronic illnesses and healthcare, and I was growing my acumen and skills in a career of fundraising. So fast forward to 2020, I met my partner, and she has type 1 diabetes. And a few months into our relationship, I've started learning a little bit more about what type 1 diabetes is, differences between type 1 and type 2, what is insulin, like how does this all work? CRPS I knew because I had been experiencing it for years, but diabetes I didn't really know anything about other than my grandpa having it when I was younger, and he passed away. But I didn't remember too much, and it's very different than type 1. But after some time, I learned a little bit more about insulin. I learned a little bit more about the story about Frederick Banting and the U Toronto researchers, and learned that the patents for the current batches of insulin are expiring, and that the pathway to get FDA approval is shorter for generic insulins. Biosimilars is the technical term. And I realized that the problem with insulin pricing isn't a scientific one. It's the patent's expired. We know how to make it. Well, I don't, but some people know how to make it, and they, we can pay them to do that. So the problem with insulin isn't scientific, but rather financial. And so if we could raise enough money, we can tackle this problem head on. And so as a fundraiser with a passion for chronic illnesses, a passion for healthcare, it just kind of blended skill set and passions to create Project Insulin.
That's awesome. That's such a great story.
Thank you. Yeah.
I love that your personal passions and your kind of career trajectory intersected in such a serendipitous way.
Yeah.
What do you think is the best fundraising tip that you learned from your time at working for Brandeis?
Oh man, best fundraising tip. I'd say like it's one of two things. First is being comfortable asking. A lot of people are worried about asking for things. And I totally get it. Like in my personal life, I don't generally ask for whether it be help or support or whatever it might be. But as a professional, it's very easy for me to ask for just about anything. And the reason is like, what's the worst that could happen? Like worst case scenario, someone says no, and then you just go ask somebody else. So just getting comfortable asking and being upfront about what you're asking for. So when I, have meetings now, I will tell people, hi, I'm at Project Insulin. It'd be great to meet with you to discuss fundraising or to discuss drug development or to discuss whatever, marketing or whatever it might be, volunteering. And if they say no, that's okay. But if they say yes, you already have, it's like a warm intro, so to speak, because they know what you're talking about. The likelihood that it ends up being a successful meeting is higher because you already know that they have an interest in exactly what you're going to ask them. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the best tip I could give.
It's a great tip. I am definitely one of those people who needs to get more comfortable asking. So I also read that you guys recently found a university that can develop a plasmid, and that's part of what's going into Project Insulin. First of all, what is a plasmid?
Oh, so where did you see that? Because I didn't know that was external news.
In the document that you sent me. I apologize if that is not external news.
Oh, so I mean, it's no, I don't remember exactly what it was, but so yeah, we reached out to a university to help with plasmid development. So a plasmid is the way to explain it, it's like it's the code that you put into a living organism, and it tells the organism what to do. So in our case, the plasmid is the code that tells E. coli, which is what the living organism that you use for insulin. Uh, the plasmid tells the E. coli to produce insulin. So that's what a plasmid does. We have reached out to a few universities to color this in a little bit about plasmid development. We know that it's not a particularly expensive process, but it does take a little bit of time. So universities is an option for us. We haven't decided on anything yet, which is why I was surprised. But yeah, I guess that might be my fault. That's okay.
No, no worries. Have you found that partnering with universities it has been a fruitful path in like many areas of Project Insulin and better than like going a commercial route?
So not necessarily. Internships and stuff like that has been really fruitful, and we have interns across the country. Shout out to Arizona State University, if anyone from there listens to this. Well, Amanda will, so Amanda, thank you for being a great intern. But we haven't found a way to work together on actual drug development yet, mostly because we're not ready to like lead a project at this point. Like creating the plasmid, we needed a little bit more information. So we're still kind of like developing the recipe, so to speak, for the plasmid, which we will then give to the university. So I guess the answer is if we work with a university, we have to provide more. Whereas if we work with a commercial organization, we can lean on them a little bit for their expertise and uh, past experience doing this, doing drug development in whatever capacity. So I guess that would be the pros and cons.
That makes sense. What other kind of partners besides developing a plasmid, what other kind of partner organizations is Project Insulin looking for at this time?
Yeah, so drug development partners for large scale contract research and manufacturing, they would kind of be the ones doing the actual drug development, because again, we plan on outsourcing most things, with our team kind of doing the oversight, quality assurance, while they produce it for us. Other than that, I mean, we've partnered with a few chocolate makers, actually, of all things.
Chocolate makers.
Yeah, so one of our volunteers is a food blogger, and he's connected to chocolate makers, as one is. And we reached out to one because they do a sugar substitute chocolate. They use erythritol as a sugar substitute, and for at least for some people, it doesn't affect your blood sugar as much. And it actually tastes pretty good. So red chocolate is the name if anyone wants to look into it. I don't know about plugs, but whatever. And so an example of partnering. Okay, yeah. Well, an example of partnering was the Salem Halloween Parade in Boston, in Salem, Massachusetts. Project Insulin was a part of it, and so we brought 1,000 chocolate bars to the parade so that anyone who wanted chocolate but had insulin-dependent diabetes or diabetes at all and didn't want to worry about their blood sugar as much could have delicious chocolate without feeling excluded. And so that's an example of a partnership, right? Like it's cute. It's not like it doesn't have to be like we're making a drug. We're also here to help the community, right? The diabetes community at large. So at our most recent fundraising event, Pi Day, a local Rhode Island farm, Gnarly Vines Farm, provided us with a few free pies, and those are keto pies. So keto pies have less carbs. And it's not that people with diabetes can't eat carbs, but if there's less carbs, it's a little easier, and it's not a big deal for everyone else to have a keto pie. And the pies were also delicious. So Um, so those are
That's
examples
awesome.
of partners. So partners isn't just drug developers. We could partner with other nonprofits to write grants together, um, partner with for-profit organizations looking for a quarterly nonprofit to highlight or something like that. We're very flexible and we enjoy being creative. So partnerships is one of the more fun parts of the job.
I mean, it sounds like you guys have got some great partnerships going. Um, I would love to hear more about as well. What is the team at Project Insulin like, and who are you guys looking to bring on in the near future?
Yeah, so the team is we have a board of three, myself, my partner, and a third person. Um, and then we have a group of volunteers that is about, I don't know, 20 deep, probably, like consistent volunteers. And they scale from they range from drug development to marketing to social media, grant writing, communications, whatever, everything and anything. So as far as what we're looking for, we need to do a website redesign. Our website is fine, but it can be better, and I am not a designer. And I think one of the better parts of Project Insulin has been that we know who we are, and so if we could find someone who is a designer, that would be great. And otherwise, yeah, I mean, we're always just looking for help. So if you are interested in the cause, we'll find a spot for you. When I talk to my interns, I always make sure that we discuss what they want rather than what we need, because a volunteer is only going to be as motivated as the work that they're doing. Right?
Yeah.
If they're not doing work that they care about, then they're going to stop volunteering. So I would rather find things that fit the person than just give tasks at random. So that's kind of what volunteering with us looks like. Yeah.
It's great. And you mentioned earlier about how through being with your partner and starting Project Insulin, you really learned a lot more about the kind of traditional or the typical experience people have with diabetes than you had ever really known before. What do you think that people who don't necessarily have someone in their lives with diabetes, but may want to, be more inclusive when planning events or, just when they're going about their day, what do you think people should know about people with diabetes?
Oh man. Yeah. Let's see. Hmm. I don't know. I like it's hard to say because it's not something I have, and my experience is based on one person. So like I could tell you what, my partner would want at an event. But I couldn't tell you what, like, I don't speak for I don't speak for the trees, so to speak.
Of
Uh
course.
yeah, so I think like honestly, the best thing you could do is if you know there's someone coming with diabetes, or I mean, I think any illness, like just ask them like what like, do you need anything at all at this event? Does anything need to be different? My sister, loud noises, bright lights, stuff like that really affect her. So, someone asking that before her coming to their event will probably make it that her experience is so much better. And it really, like, no one's gonna notice. Like the
Yeah.
lights are a little bit dimmer, the music's a little bit less loud. So yeah, I can't give like a waxing thing, but just ask.
Yeah.
It's like the fundraising, just ask.
I think that's great advice. And I think it really, one of the reasons that I liked your TED Talk so much, he's got a great TED Talk. Go check it out online about increasing visibility of invisible disabilities. And as somebody with an invisible disability myself, I think that that's great advice. And I thought it was a great TED Talk. Um, what else is Project Insulin kind of looking for? How can people listening get involved and help out?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, first of all, head to our website, projectinsulin.org, and you can learn a little bit more about us. We have a volunteer page, so you can put your name in and share a little bit about what you're interested in doing, and we can find a way to get you involved. You can follow us on social media, subscribe to our newsletter. We only do quarterly. This is like a thing I have to tell everyone in advance. We're not going to spam you. It's once a quarter. And then whenever Pi Day comes around, it's twice, because we ask you for a donation one day and then we say thank you to everybody a couple weeks later. So yeah, I think those are basics. If someone is interested in making a donation, or knows people who might be interested, send me an email. I'd love to talk to you. Love to tell you more about what we're doing. And we have some exciting things in the works, which I'd love to share, but I can't yet. And so I look forward to the day where I can, because it's an opportunity to really expand our reach and impact as an organization. So yeah.
Well, I, for one, look forward to hearing more about what's coming for Project Insulin in the future. What else would you like our viewers to know, or what kind of thought would you like to leave them with before we wrap up the show for that evening?
Yeah. Wow. What would I like? Well, to know, just thank you all for coming and listening. Really appreciate it. And leave them with something. I think if I've learned anything as a founder, it's that being honest is the best way to go about things, and asking for help is really important. And those are things that have, it's cool learning those things in the mind frame of my work, but those are also things to take to my personal life. So it's cool, like being able to grow on multiple levels doing something. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eric, for joining us. Once again, everyone, that was Eric Moyal from Project Insulin. Our lovely executive director was the guest this evening. I've been your host, Diana Perkins. I'm a board member at RAMP and the CEO of Include Design, a product design firm created products for people with disabilities. Next week, we'll be back with your regular host, Tina. And as Tina always says, don't just sit there, do something. Bye.